Capcom Remake train has been running uninterrupted and has now reached the largest station to accommodate its route, Resident Evil 4. Until the release of the game on March 24, 2023, this survival horror remake must meet many expectations, and according to what we found from the previous Resident Evil series remakes, despite these expectations, Capcom is not afraid to take risks. We expect the Resident Evil 4 remake to make extensive changes in various key sectors. In this video, we will address a number of changes that we hope to see.
This is the most obvious case. Resident Evil 4's original version is still a real masterpiece, there's no doubt about it, but it also has a very old and banal tone. This is not considered to be a flaw, it was purposefully designed and the aesthetic formed on its low budget was part of the project's seasoning. But nevertheless, such a tone is inconsistent with Resident Evil's modern, aesthetic style, which is far established and replaced. In the remake of the second and third versions of the game, we saw changes in the tone for this purpose, and even according to the trailers we've seen so far from Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's almost obvious that this version will follow the same trend.
The latter is in line with changes in the tone of Resident Evil 4, which we hope will occur in the game, although the gameplay trailer released a few weeks ago confirms this. Resident Evil began its action-driven era since the fourth version of the series, which was more a horror action game than survival horror. True, anxiety was constantly felt throughout the whole game, but anxiety and panic are two distinct things.
We're guessing that most likely we're not going to see this in Remake. In the unveiling trailer, there were dating scenes that occurred in the original during the day, but were seen in Remake overnight, and the overall tone of the game seemed much scarier, and the gameplay trailer also stamped another stamp of approval on this approach. We are very keen for this to be felt throughout the whole gaming experience. Discussing the speed ahead in any game can be challenging, especially horror genre games, where creating an attractive pace is a complicated process. The original Resident Evil 4 was definitely a very long game in terms of horror genre standards, with a duration of 15 to 20 hours, and there were problems in the different parts of the story. For example, many people agree that private parts of the game like the island are a little too long. With the release of its recent Resident Evil remakes, Capcom has proven that it is not afraid to remove content where necessary, perhaps even in unnecessary situations, and Resident Evil 4 is a title that may be quickly improved by removing parts of it. This is consistently criticized by a large number of old Resident Evil fans about the fourth version, which despite all its strengths, the game is very independent of its earlier versions. Following the first 3 games of Resident Evil and version code Veronica, Capcom was preparing space for a massive final confrontation with Umbrella Corporation, so when it was said that all this storyline had been completed in the interval between the works before and Resident Evil 4, and with just one on-screen writing, they messed up, it wasn't digestible for the fans. Clearly, we don't expect this to change in the game's remake, but we would like to see changes to further connect the events of the fourth version of the game with past titles in the series. Resident Evil 3's remake now also includes changes to get more close to Resident Evil 4, so we're optimistic about that. It is notable to make a version of Resident Evil in which Leon is present, but Ada is not a vital part of the story, and of course Ada played a big part in Resident Evil 4. Since we were able to take a brief look at this popular character in the game trailer, it can be said that Ada will be present in this remake. We also hope that the character's campaign, which was separate from the original for obvious reasons, will lead to the story. Resident Evil 2 was well able to include all the items related to Ada in the original story, so we are very confident that the remake will be the fourth version of the sequel. When it comes to leading figures such as Leon, Ashley, Ada and Wesker, we are confident that Capcom will pay much attention to portraying them in Remake, but we hope that the company will focus on a number of side characters but also important in the game. Luis Serra, for example, played a key role in the original game, and Jack Krauser, as one of the antagonists, had a strong presence in the game. We want to see not only more of them, but also more information about them and more clarity on their story than the original Resident Evil 4 version. On the other hand, at the same time we really hope that Salazar will switch to a completely different character, also in terms of sound, or appear in the game for a shorter time. Chainsaw Man, or Dr. Salvador, can be considered one of the most memorable negative characters not only in Resident Evil 4, but also in the entire Resident Evil series, and as we have seen in the gameplay trailer, this powerful enemy is more aggressively present in the remake. Capcom will undoubtedly not go through this position to draw attention to this character. Of course, the real question is, how will it be used in Remake? Personally, I'd like to see an enemy who has appeared before us like Mr. X every once in a while and resembles him in the grueling and challenging debate, but a little faster to adapt to his movements. This is certainly considered an extensive revision of the original Resident Evil 4 version, but the remakes of the series have always shown a willingness to make big changes. This is, in fact, essential. The original Resident Evil 4 is a lasting work in many respects, but one aspect that some believe is the lack of simultaneous motion and firing capability. Of course, there will be this capability in Remake, but this means that there needs to be a massive review of various conflicts. Review in cases such as how many enemies the game will send you, where they will attack you, how many times they will appear, and how the environments are designed. All of these need to be revised to fit the new motor features. Resident Evil 4 had a wide range of different weapons, which is one of the reasons for its high repeat value, as you can invest in different weapons and use them in different parts of the game. We hope that the remake will invest more and more with further upgrade options for weapons. Resident Evil 4's original version had done very well in this regard, and the truth is that even if you use the same mechanism of weapons advancement in Remake, there will be no problem, but as we have already found out, Capcom rarely rejects new ideas for Remake, and it will probably be the same this time around. Resident Evil 4 Remake game will get virtual reality content for PSVR 2, but it would have been nice to see the whole game being able to experience virtual reality. To be honest, this seems a little unattainable. In the least case, Resident Evil 4 is set to become a huge product, and as a third-person game, it's not as suitable for virtual reality as it should be, or at least the virtual reality style we expect not only from the Resident Evil series, but also the horror genre as a whole.
But given that Resident Evil 7 was able to appear on great virtual reality, so much so that the PSVR 2 version of Resident Evil Village game looked promising, and Resident Evil 4 VR performed well on Quest 2 glasses, it's hard not to look for a virtual reality version for this remake. We hope that sometime after it is published, this will happen. What do you think about this? What other change can improve the original game more than ever? Share your opinions with me in the comments section.